Right, this will help you understand why people go on so many weight loss journeys. You might be able to relate. So a lot of people can tend to go on multiple weight loss journeys before getting to the end goal. And then there's a lot of people who will spend their whole life going on a weight loss journey and never get into the end goal. So people have a mental capacity, and once that mental capacity is run out, they have to stop, they have to relax, and then they have to get back on the bandwagon to be able to increase the mental capacity. Your mental capacity is like a muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it becomes. The less you train it, the weaker it becomes. But let me explain this in a way which was going to make more sense, and then I'll relate it back to weight loss. So imagine this little diagram here, and we'll talk about marathon runners. So people who train or enter to be able to complete a marathon, they don't wake up on the first day being able to run 26.2 miles. They know they have to train, and some people train for 12 months to be able to complete the marathon. Now, when a person begins their first marathon training, on the very first week, they'll only have a running capability that is only going to allow them to run so far. And the very first run, they might only be able to run 1 kilometre, but that 1 kilometre might be a walk, run. It might not be a consistent run. On their very first day, there's no way in hell they're going to be able to do 26.2 miles. However, it's easy to understand when people go training for a marathon that it's going to take time, and they have to start small, and they have to build up over a long period of time. Now, let's say this particular runner, first run, on their first 1 to 4 weeks, they might only plan to run 1K. So every time they go out, their distance is just to try and complete 1K. And it doesn't have to be a consistent run, it's a walk, run. Now, if they stay consistent, then their body will allow them to be able to run 2K. So then their running capability, when they get to the 2K, they're going to have to stop. They have to rest, relax, and go again. However, if they relax for too long and have too many days off, or have a couple of weeks off, then their running capability starts weakening. So their 1K or their 2K goes right back to 1K. So it has to be a consistent thing over time for someone to be able to complete their marathon that they're training for. So week 1 to week 4 is 1K, and then maybe week 4 to week 6 is 2K, and then week 6 to week 8 is 3K, and it slowly increases. And then over time, they're going to be able to run the 26.2K. Make sense? Let's revert it back to weight loss. Weight loss with a mental capacity is the exact same thing. When people go through a weight loss journey, a lot of people, when they first start, they got incredible discipline, and they can follow a nutrition plan, they can follow an exercise routine for a week, and they're extremely dedicated. They get results, but by the end of the week, their mental capacity is emptied. And because of that, their body forces them to relax, maybe not exercise as much, eat or consume things that kept them in the position that they don't need to be in. So alcohol, or a lot of junk food, a lot of processed food, more than it needs to. But what happens when people go through a weight loss journey, they start with the intention of trying to complete it in one hit, and trying to complete the marathon run in one hit. But it doesn't happen. When they go through a weight loss journey, and after that week, if someone slips up, they feel they failed, because their mental capacity is gone. And a lot of people just stop and think, it's not working, it's not for me. However, what needs to happen when someone starts a weight loss journey, they'll do it, and they'll do it for a portion of the time. Their mental capacity will empty. When it empties, they have to allow their body to relax and rest, and maybe allow some of the bad foods in that they shouldn't do, but then they need to get right back on the wagon. Just like the consistent of training. If they get right back on the wagon, so they'll have a 1 week mental capacity, they might have 3 or 4 days off, and then they get back onto it and they'll have a 2 week mental capacity, and they might have 3 or 4 days off, and then they'll get back to it and have 3 weeks capacity. And they'll be able, each time, they should be able to go a little stronger. Their mental capacity will be stronger, so therefore they'll have more. But if that person relaxes for too long and has too much of a break, their mental capacity weakens and it goes back. And then they'll try another weight loss program, say in a few months' time, but they've only got a small mental capacity because they didn't consistently kind of train them. So that's one aspect. With weight loss, everyone's got a mental capacity, and that's the main thing what allows people to get the great results, is because it's having a discipline long enough to stay the journey, long enough to get to the end result. A lot of people allow their mental capacity to take over, and because they can't see it as a progression journey, they stop and go backwards. So, but don't let this be an excuse. Don't let this be like, oh, my mental capacity is weak, so I'm going to have this chocolate bar, or which is not on the plan, or alcohol, etc., etc. But just bear that in mind. So there's a great saying, plan to fail regularly, which is interesting, because if you're failing, it means you're doing something to the point where it's pushing you out of your comfort zone, so therefore you're getting outside your comfort zone. If you keep doing it, it takes longer for you to be able to fail. So, and that's one of the reasons. Hopefully that helps. Enjoy. See you in the next video.